Ready? Ready, Danielle?
Are we live?
Yeah. Yep, you're good.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for April 16th. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:01 with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval for the meeting minutes from April 9th. I will await a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes for April 9th, 2026.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Approval for warrants for week 16, payroll warrant number 30 for $34,894.45, and appropriations warrant number 34 for $41,505.68, for a total of $76,400.13. I will wait an approval.
Make a motion to approve, make a motion to approve warrants for week 16, payroll warrant number 30 and appropriations warrant number 34.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? None seen. All in favor? Okay, review of office hours today. We had our Public Works foreman came in today and spoke with us about the quotes that he's received for the new loader and his recommendations for the town to purchase. Should the special town meeting will be next week, then the 23rd. If the funding passes, the Public Works Department's recommending the John Deere. So we spoke with the developer from the old Tiedemann Farm parcel about why a bond is required for his campground project. The planning board chair stopped in to provide us with some planning board updates. We also discussed, we had a discussion about no data center referendum before voters in this coming November ballot. So it's something that Joyce had brought up as well. No, it was you. Tammy brought up that there is a moratorium
In the state of Maine.
in the state of Maine right now, but that runs out
2027.
27. So just discussions on what's available and see if the voters would be interested in continuing that moratorium further ahead. So we also met with Daniel Bowden from Pilot's Cove Cafe. Since Limington Airport is not available this year to host a concert, Mr. Bowden was wondering if there might be another venue in Limington. We had a few discussions. Really no options in the town here. We were not able to recommend a suitable venue here, but did mention several places and budding towns that have options. We also reviewed the job description for the assistant rec director that will be hitting the press tomorrow morning or tonight. I think it's going to be going on the website anyways, but.
Yeah, it's included in the meeting minutes online, yep.
Okay.
And we'll post it separately on the website.
Okay. Anything else? I don't believe
I don't think so.
from the meeting this afternoon.
We met with Madison regarding his department.
Yeah, that's the job description for the rec director, assistant rec directors, yeah. I think that's it on, I don't wanna miss anything, that's all.
No, oh, I think that's everything that we discussed.
Okay. Let's see here. Resident department head updates, we can. Yeah, I guess we'll move on to the department head updates.
Okay. The first one up is Limington Department of Public Works. Weekly update for week ending April 11th. The road crew ordered, picked up, and installed a new fender on the hot box. They treated roads, removed plows from trucks, and cleaned after the storm. They marked Hubbard Avenue for dig safe. They began road patching. They removed posted signs from town roads, and they cleared the beaver dams at Pine Hill and Millturn. The fleet maintenance repaired hoses on truck 4, installed a new fuel pump on the grader, traveled to Portland to retrieve parts, and more front-end repairs to truck 1. Buildings and grounds finalized prices and choices for mattress trailer, the tractor, and snow pusher. Met with UniFirst to collect new dispensers, chemicals, and paper products for all buildings. Cleaned the municipal complex. Installed a new handrail at Davis Memorial Library. Traveled to pick up the counter and other items purchased for the kitchen area in the Old Town Hall, and picked up the new mattress trailer. The director completed payroll, fuel, and part slips. Monday meeting with the crew. Weekly report to Board of Selectmen, compiled transfer station weekly numbers, and conducted initial training for 2 new employees at the transfer station. And special notes, the department worked a combined 209 hours this week. Included in those numbers, those transfer station numbers, for April 8th, 11th, and 12th, 222 people came to the transfer station to use it, and total recyclers was 80.2% of those people. 178 people brought recycling when they came to the transfer station. Amidst all the other breakdowns of everything that happened up there. So, very comprehensive list. Total revenue for the week was $742. Love this breakdown now. It's a lot of information, really good. Code Enforcement Office. Permits. 1 growth permit. This is for week April 1st through the 14th. 1 growth permit, 4 building permits, 3 electrical, 2 plumbing, 5 gravel pits, for a total of 15 permits. The fees for those 15 totaled $4,963.80. Year-to-date, 57 permits, and a year-to-date total, $14,158.14. He has gone on 13 inspections during this time frame, and the town has hired a new code office assistant. She'll be starting on Wednesday, 4/22, working 14 hours per week. Soon, they will be getting the code office files on the town's website as they get scanned, most likely starting with map R1 and so on. This may take a year to get all the files available to be seen on the website. And the code office is closed on Monday, April 20th.
Town hall too.
Oh, yes, the town hall, it's a holiday,
Patriots Day.
Patriots,
So it's town
so
hall.
only Maine. It's not a
I
Massachusetts.
think it's 6 states, actually. We
Is
looked
it?
it up the other day.
All right,
Massachusetts, Maine, others. Yeah.
okay, so all Patriots get the day off. Limington Fire and EMS, weekly fire and EMS report for week ending April 11th. Number of calls for service this week were 16, fire 6, and EMS 10. Month to date, 26 total calls, and year to date, 195. The schedule was complete except for 1 day where the building and ground tech covered from within the town. Trainings and meetings in-house Wednesday evening. We held our multi-department pre-burn meeting to go over the burn plan for Sunday's live fire training. And Chief traveled out of town to Alfred for the monthly EMA Directors Meeting. Month to date, we are 7 calls ahead of last April. Year to date, we are 1 call behind last year. 1 request for mutual aid this week, a fire call to Limerick. And the chief worked a combined 54 hours this week. Limington Parks and Rec. Current weekly programs before and after school childcare. Coffee social every Wednesday from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Old Town Hall. Pickleball, Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. at HB Emery Gym. There is a $2 drop-in fee. Youth Open Gym, Tuesday nights at 5:30 p.m. at HB Emery. 3-on-3 basketball for 5th to 7th grade Thursday nights at the HB Emery. Open registration, you can register online at limingtonrec.com for summer camp registration. Spring track and field for children in pre-K up to 5th grade. Starting Monday, April 27th. Practices will be Monday and Fridays at HB Emery from 3 to 4. The registration fee is $55. Line dancing with Denise, classes every Friday at 10 a.m. at the Old Town Hall. $10 per class, no registration needed beforehand. Sign in when you arrive. Spring rugby for children in K through 12th grade. Youth field hockey clinic. Adult co-ed softball league, youth flag football, April vacation camp, Tuesday 4/21 to Friday 4/24. Our department is hiring for the summer. Open positions include summer camp counselor and beachfront positions. Job descriptions and applications are available on our website. Our department is hiring an assistant rec director. You can find the full job description and application online on our website. Youth programming. We had a great early release childcare day at HB Emery on Wednesday. We enjoyed a lot of time outside in the spring weather. And that's it for the department updates this week.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
We're gonna move right into the,
Hey, give me a quick update.
what's that? Yes. The, sorry, Matt,
That's okay.
I didn't even see it on here.
Yes, top of the next page.
Always throw me off.
There's a bag, so.
Yep, sorry.
All right, real quick, the deputy clerk has taken over accounts payable, so going forward, I will do AP when she's on vacation. The CEO and I interviewed applicants for the office assistant position. And as you heard earlier, we made the decision to offer the position to Vicky Shane. I reviewed the job description for the assistant rec director. On April 27th, the code enforcement officer and I will meet with our IT service provider to discuss the scanning, storage, and access of online documents from the code enforcement office. And I'll be taking some PTO next week. My schedule will be posted on the website tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
You just lost something up on the screen there.
It's probably timed out.
Okay, old business, I think we've kind of covered it. There's no old businesses there.
No.
No.
No,
New
we have all of
business.
the quotes on equipment that we'll be discussing next week at the. so
Yes, we-
we already talked about that.
Yeah, we have all the quotes in, I think it's 5 or 6 different quotes from different companies. Those will be available and explained at the special town meeting next week. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, what time is that? We ought to. make sure
it's
people
gonna
come
be
out.
starting at
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
We'll do that before
Yeah.
this meeting here.
Okay, so 7 PM. special
Yep,
town
7
meeting.
PM is for the special town meeting next week. Any old business, David? No. Nothing? New business? No? Okay, if not, then we will roll right into the MS 86 proposal. If you guys would, you'd like to come right up. No mic to talk into, we got a new system now, so.
Different,
Speak to
nice.
the
Yeah,
ceiling.
yeah.
And I can scroll down here, Clay, as you're going
Okay.
through it.
Yep, I'll try to remember to talk about what page I'm on. We'll start with an apology. Dawn Fuller, our business manager, intends to be here, but she was sort of double booked. The they're interviewing for a new superintendent tonight, and that process ran a little late. So she'll probably come in the middle, and it's okay, because I usually start anyway, and she has her part somewhere at the end. If she doesn't make it, I'll try to cover it, but she did have the handout, so I apologize to folks in the audience if I don't have handouts with me, but there are some coming, and we can get them. We can obviously get them too. So again,
Everything's
But
showing.
basically,
Everything is showing.
there.
yeah, it's right there, that's true, but if people wanted to take it with them, digest it, whatever, have it for reference later, we definitely have copies that we can make available.
And people at home can see this right now too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the process, so there's not a slide for that, but just a little about the budget development process. We start in the fall, really looking ahead to the next spring's budget. In between November, December, Dawn and I met with every administrator and director of every department in school and asked them to really take a look at their budget and do their best to come in with a 0% increase of all the costs that they could control. And in pretty much all cases, they were able to do that. So their non-labor items are coming in pretty much flat. There's a couple exceptions, which I'll talk about later. But for the most part, the things that we have control over are 0% increases. We had the next thing we do is we post for a budget advisory committee. Unfortunately, that coincides with your meetings on Thursday nights. So, so we struggle to sometimes get people from Limington, but so we had 6 of those meetings between December and March, and it's a citizens advisory committee. And our hope from that group is to get feedback on the budget, not necessarily what items to buy or what position to hire, but what's the tolerance in the community for an increase or different high level expenditures. So that process played out, and a budget was developed with input from that committee. I think we left, so that was about mid-March. And if anyone wanted to check out the minutes of those meetings, and there are recordings of those meetings available, they're on our website. So from there, the budget goes to the Finance and Facilities Committee of the board. So they met on March 12th, considering that budget that came out of the budget advisory. They didn't recommend any changes other than they did want to spend an additional $1 million out of our fund balance to basically reduce the tax burden on the local taxpayer. I can say more about fund balance later. That's always a tricky topic, but they didn't recommend any further changes. At that time, we were still kind of waiting to get final numbers on health insurance, but we had to kind of go with what we thought. So after that meeting, that budget was sent to the full board. So about, at least 2 weeks before the regular meeting on April 6th. And at that time, the budget stood at $73,480,287, and that was going to be a tax increase of 5.82. But we had some work we did since then. Right before the board meeting, I think the Friday before our school board meeting on April 6th, we got our final health insurance numbers, and we had initially been told it would be as high as 20%. So we put that number in, and then they said, no, it'll probably be less than 14. So we changed, that was the 14%, I think, is what the initial budget that went to the board had, and the final number was about 9%. So it's kind of sad that we're celebrating 9% because that's still a lot, but it's a lot less than what we were hoping or afraid that it could be. So that budget went to the board for consideration, or that issue went to the board as they discussed the budget, and we were able to provide a more accurate number. And so that number came in lower, considerably lower, at just over 73 million. So it was about 400,000 less by being able to use those accurate numbers. And with that additional million on carry forward, it brings the tax assessment increase on an average to 4.59. And again, I'll have more slides to show that, to get into that. So that's sort of our process. And so then May 6th, there's a budget meeting where people from the community can come, and each article has to be voted on. There can be recommendations made to lower articles. I'm pretty sure they can be increased, but they could be lowered if the group assembled there decided to do that. And then on June, I think it's June 6th, I'm not sure, June 8th, it's in the beginning of June anyway, there is, that's when the final vote happens to vote the budget up or down, the budget that comes out of that budget meeting. So that's sort of overview of the process. So now I'll jump into the packet. Go to page 2. We've tried to include a little bit of academic data. It's hard to capture this on just a few pages. We have a more complete presentation that we do each fall, like around October for the school board. And again, those meetings are recorded, so folks could go take a look at those. So this is a snapshot of English language arts. The chart to the left, that's really small and hard to read, but basically.
Clay, this will also be available on the website.
Okay, so people can check that out too. That red line is the state average. The blue line is the Bonnie Eagle sort of average if you can't read it, it's 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and high school is what it's written across the bottom there. And you can see we kind of parallel the state, just below the state average at most grades. There are a couple peaks where we've pretty much are at state average. Looks like around 5th grade and 7th grade in language arts. And then the next score shows it in just a different way. The number of students above the benchmark. And so 60% is sort of what the data would tell you you're going for. And you can see we have a couple of grades. I think it's 3 grades where we're above 60% and others are between 50 and 60. So there's definitely some room for improvement there, but it's, there's some mixed results in the English language arts. The next chart's math, similar, that bar graph is similar data, kind of shows that and if you can see the numbers, none of them are above 60%. So math has definitely been an area that we've been focusing on. So those scores need to be better. On the right, you'll see some of the results of what we've been doing about that. We implemented a new math program for K-5, and I think this is the 3rd year. And this chart shows last year the benchmark assessments for that program, the number of students that were 70% or higher on that benchmark, on that assessment, and then this current year. And you can see every grade there was improvement. And the younger grades tend to do better. It's all they've known. The older grades have had to adjust to the new program. There's new terminology, new language, but they're still doing really well to adjust. There is discussion about bringing this into 6th grade also to keep the continuity going, because a big part of math is consistency in terminology and approach and language. So I think that's a little bit of success of seeing some improvement. The next page, a little bit of high school data. It's a lot harder to sort of measure with the way the classes are set up and everything at high school, but a couple of highlights. We have a lot of participation in early college courses. Kids have met their high school requirements and they take advantage of this to be able to take college classes either in person or online. And this year we had 53 students take 105 courses, which is by far the most that we've had. It allows them to save money. They can count these towards whatever college program will accept them, and they take them at no cost to themselves. So that's a great opportunity that kids are taking advantage of. The middle chart there is about our advanced placement courses. Our participation in that is pretty steady. We have about 100 students that participate in advanced placement courses. They take about 150 exams. So of course some kids take more than one course, and there's a 68% rate of AP students scoring a 3 or higher, which is that's what you want to get in order to get credit and be able to use it in college to sometimes test out of classes. So I think that's a pretty strong number there. And then the next chart is our graduation rate, which you can see above. The red line again is the state, blue line is Bonnie Eagle, and you can see where in 2024 we were actually above the state average, and again in 2025 we're above the state average. For 2 years in a row we've got that graduation rate up to 87% and equal or above the state average. So that's something that we're pretty proud of. I did not put any attendance data in this year, but it has not substantially changed. I think we're just below 3,300 students right now, and I think we expect to open at about 3,250. So we might be 40 or 50 students less when we start the year next year. So that has been a fairly stable number. There's just a slight decline over the last 10 years, not huge, but just a little bit of a trickle downward. So this first slide is a snapshot of the history of the general fund budget, which is doesn't include school nutrition and food service. So you can just see where those increases have come in. So this year, it's a 5.74. If you go one more, I think. Yeah, right there, the FY27. So for next school year, it's a 5.74% increase year to year. I already mentioned that pretty much all the things that we have control over, we don't have increases, and this is largely salary and benefits. I talked a little bit about the health insurance. 9% is still a pretty significant increase, and we have 4 bargaining units that we have 725 employees, and most of them are in one of those 4 bargaining units. So we have contracted salaries that we owe people, and that's a lot of what's behind that number is salary and benefits increases, and then costs that we don't have control over, like fuel and energy costs, like everybody at home would face too. If you look at the next page, page 5, these are those other 2 areas. School nutrition, you can see the history of the increases. And if you keep scrolling right there, those last 3 years, you might say, well, why are those so much higher than the others? In the past, the district didn't always budget as precisely for the costs that they were laying out in this area, and they would count on the revenues that were coming in to make up for the difference. We do get some revenue from this department, but the approach that Dawn and I have taken is to be precise in the budgeting, and if we're gonna spend it, we should have the money to back it up. So some of that explains this, but also, just like everyone at home, food is costing more, and we're feeding a lot of kids. So the biggest driver in that increase, in addition to the accounting, is also just food costing more year over year. Adult ed, it's the amount of money is not as big as some of the others in the budget, and it's a program that really I think it's pretty comprehensive, and it offers a lot to folks who want to take advantage of it in our community. Again, a 2% increase is fairly minimal, and they do generate also some revenue through their enrichment classes. But again, we can't count on that, so we have to budget for what we think it's going to cost for adult ed. And then this next page is sort of the overall picture, and I'll go through each of these items in a little more detail. But this shows all of the 11 articles that have to be voted on, the general fund increase that I mentioned, and then if you go a little further, those 2 areas I just mentioned, and then the bottom line, the grand total budget, one more scroll. It's a total of a 6.02% increase year over year for all funds. And like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's largely salary and benefits. Then I'll go to the part that people get interested in is the assessment. Thing I want to remind folks, we were in Hollis last night and we did a virtual meeting with Fry Island. We don't get to decide how this increase is applied. The state tells us, right? We get something called an ED 279, and it tells us what our anticipated revenue is going to be. A lot of calculations and multipliers and mill rates, and then it lays out what the state feels each community's ability to pay is. Not what SAD 6 thinks, it's what the state thinks, and that's what we have to bill the town. So the overall increase after using that $5 million of fund balance is 4.59. That's the increase on the taxpayers. And that's how it breaks down that next box between the towns. And you can see it varies fairly widely. Fry Island at 8.15, and Buxton happens to be the lowest at 3.54, and there's Limington at 5.12. And then these are some estimates that I think Dawn prepared to just the tax impact per $100,000 of property value for each of the towns. And I can pause there for a minute if anybody has questions, because what I'm going to do next is
place to stop.
go into each article just real quick and talk about each one. So if anybody, this would be a good time if anybody has any general questions or.
So the assessment by town, that is state directed?
Yes.
So the state says that Limington is to pay 5.12.
Yes, and I have to say, I don't have the best grasp on how to explain it. As I understand it, they use some kind of three-year average, And I don't know exactly what number they're using. It's different than like your valuation of what you assess your taxes on, but they take something and interpret it and apply it to this formula. And it is a 3-year average. And so what I see happening is, I think it was last year, Standish had a higher number because they had recently had a reevaluation that finally hit their 3-year average. And so it had a negative effect on their increase, right? They had a higher increase because they were seen as having more value in their property. It's happened, it kind of floats through the towns as those valuations are updated. That's about the best I can do. What I recommended to Fry Island is that they can, ask their representatives, ask folks in the budget office at the state to kind of break that down of how they arrive at that number. I just know we don't get input into that. We don't send anything to them. We don't get asked. We get that, and that's what we have to work off from.
Okay. It's a good idea. Anybody have questions? If you do, just step up to the podium up here. Yep, you're in the no zone right now.
I want.
You're outside the zone.
Yeah, you gotta be in the zone to be heard.
To be heard, you have to come up to the
Thank you.
podium.
I beg your pardon?
To be heard, you have to be at the podium.
Okay.
And we can come back to, and we can always talk after too, so. Okay, what I'll do then is just kind of go through the different articles. I won't spend too long, but kind of talk about the drivers and some different things. It'll remind me some things I forgot to say. So Article 1 is the biggest area of the budget. It's regular instruction, it's all the classrooms, the teachers' salaries, alternative education programs, gifted and talented. It's really all the things that directly benefit the classroom and the education of the students. It's a 6.1% increase. So one thing I want to direct people's attention to is the last item on that list added 3 community partner pre-K classrooms. This is something that we're doing. We routinely have had to turn away a lot of kids for pre-K. We only had 96 spots. We usually have over 200 kids in a kindergarten class. We wouldn't have that many people apply for pre-K, but it was routinely several classrooms worth of folks that we had to turn away. So there's an opportunity to partner with local providers who met the state's criteria. They have a website, Roads to Quality, and providers had to meet those criteria and be on that site. So there's only 3 different daycare centers or 4-year-old programs that qualified. There are 2 different businesses, 3 sites. They happen to be in Standish and Buxton. As far as I understand, there just didn't happen to be anybody in Limington who met those criteria, or we would have included them in this also. So there is a cost that we have to budget for this, but we're also getting subsidy for those kids. So if we get 48 kids, we're gonna get so much per student increase in our subsidy. We're gonna then pay these providers that amount, right? So it doesn't cost us any more to do this, and the people who are saving are the families who get these seats because now their school day portion of their 4-year-old's education is paid for basically by the state through a pass-through. We could cut that out, but we'd also lose the revenue. So the reason I'm pointing it out though is that if we reduced it, this would bring this number down to like more like 4.5%. So it's part of the reason this is a little higher than it would normally be, but again, we'll get more revenue, which will offset that. So I think it's a win-win. We've had decent response, not as much as I thought. I thought we'd have more people applying, but I think we're gonna be in pretty good shape. If I can just go back to that one more second, sorry. We did cut 6 positions through attrition and non-renewals. Nobody lost their jobs, but one of the things we did last year is say to principals, if you have a resignation, before you fill it, you need to decide if you really need it. And they did a great job of that. And I think 3 or 4 of those positions, we didn't fill all of last year. So we took them out of the budget for this year. So nobody lost a job, but it was a savings in our salary lines. And then I think there were 2 in this area from the high school. And those are largely enrollment driven. When you don't have enough kids signing up for a certain course, then we're not going to keep offering it if we don't have enough kids to fill it. So there are 6 less positions in this budget. And then of course, I won't keep saying it, but the salary and benefits hit this the hardest because that's the most people. So, all right, thanks. Special programs is Article 2. Special ed, the biggest driver in this area. We have some students that are sometimes required, I'll just say, even if the district hasn't necessarily felt this way, but sometimes the state tells us there are students that we aren't able to educate in the district and we have to send them to out-of-district placements. Some of those are expensive and some are really expensive, and we happen to have a student or two who are in some of the really expensive ones through no fault of the district. In some cases, they're families who have moved in. We've never even seen the kid in our schools, but we inherit the responsibility for that programming. Some of these placements, when I say really expensive, they can be $300,000 and $400,000 for one student. So that is one of the biggest drivers in this article, is having to sort of beef up the lines for those kinds of situations. So that explains a lot of that, close to 7% in special instruction. Article 3 is career and technical education. This is a placeholder, basically. There was a time when the money for like Westbrook Voc was paid to the district, and then the district paid it to Westbrook. They don't do that anymore. They haven't for a number of years. We've continued to carry $10,000, almost like a contingency, just if something were to come up. I don't even know if there was ever a time we've spent that money out of that account, but we just keep it in there just in case. Other instruction is things like activities, sports, summer school that's not special education. So that's an increase of 7%. A lot of actually what's driving this is athletics is one of the areas that we couldn't keep flat fund. The officials' fees and mileage rates have all increased, and we don't really get to say no, or we wouldn't be able to hold varsity contests. The officials have groups that assign their officials. They tell us what they charge, and we can't say no. Our AD does a great job. A lot of schools will have 6 or more officials for football games, and we usually have like 4 or 5. Enough to have a safe game, but not as many as others. So he's trying to save where he can, but there's limits to what you can do. So that was really some of the biggest driving forces in this line. Also, we're finding that there are a lot of activities we offer our kids. We got a budget to make sure if they're all offered that we can pay the people to run them. And so those some can be hard to keep track of, but Dawn's done a great job, getting to the bottom of that, making sure we have those all covered so we can offer those things. Article 5 is student and staff support. So that's social work, guidance, health, library, curriculum, instructional technology. Not as much of an increase in this area. We did reduce one school counselor, one guidance counselor at the high school. We had 5. Our enrollment has declined. 5 became a luxury. We had an opportunity to transfer somebody in the district so they didn't have to lose their job. And the high school was going to use it as an opportunity to restructure. So there will be 4 guidance counselors still at the high school, but that 5th position is being reduced from the budget. Let's see, Article 6 is the superintendent's office, school board business office. This is largely salary increases, health insurance, and then some liability insurances that have gone up. I think a lot of insurance premiums are going up for a lot of things, and that's where it lives in this article. Article 7 is school administration. So this is the school offices, the principals. This looks really high, but what we're doing is a position got taken out of a different article and added to this. It's kind of complicated, but the administrators is one of our bargaining agreements. The alternative ed director used to not be in that bargaining agreement, but starting this year, that position will be. So it used to live in a different article, and now it's being pulled in, and that is one of the largest reasons for that increase, because it's a whole position being budgeted there. For the whole overall budget, it's not really an increase other than the salary and insurance increase. So that's that piece. Transportation. Article 8, again, salary benefits, and then auto insurance lives here. That's gone up. And then there was a radio upgrade. We're hearing from the drivers that they were losing communication in certain parts of the district. They had to relay through other buses to get back to dispatch. So Dawn investigated that, got a company involved. We had to make some changes to our system to try to boost the coverage. So I think it is money well spent, but it is part of that increase in that area. Article 9, facilities and maintenance, a minimal increase of 2.4%, but I will come back to why that is. So again, this is largely salary benefits, nothing really new added other than the regular maintenance, and that's because of something Dawn, I heard her come in, that she'll talk about in a few minutes about a couple of bonds that we're proposing to do this differently. One of the reasons we're doing that is this is an article that often was getting cut in the past. It isn't as flashy as other areas, and people keep saying, well, we can wait another year. We'll take some money out of that to get the budget down. And the bill is coming due. We have buildings that are just not old boilers, old ventilation systems. We had a couple of times this winter where we weren't sure if a couple of the schools were going to have to close because the boiler failed. And it was right in the middle of February, one of those cold stretches. And we can't keep putting it off. So we'll come back to that bond and talk more about that in a minute. Debt service, this is really the final payments on the Buxton school. I have to stop calling it the new school. It's the middle-aged school. It's 15 years old. It's already needing some maintenance because of some things. And again, Dawn will talk more about that. So obviously the principal's being reduced, so that's gone down. I think we have two more years of payments on Buxton.
FY '29 is the last.
Okay, so three more years of payments, and then that school will be off the books as far as for the payment piece. Article 11, all other expenses, we don't have anything in there. We don't use that. Before I go on to adult ed, I just want to circle back to the athletics piece. I really need to say how much support we get from the community in athletics. If the budget reflected everything that our kids need and enjoy for their activities and sports, it would be incredibly higher than that amount that I showed you. Our booster groups raise so much money. The parents are very involved and active. I don't know that the school has had to purchase uniforms in years because they're almost always exclusively purchased by these booster groups. And that's just a testament to the community. So sometimes people will say, well, we could cut sports and save money. You could, but I don't even know that it would save the magnitude that you might think, because there's so much money already being spent by community members and the work of the parents in those booster groups. Adult ed is, I'll just say a little more about that. I don't think I have a lot to add. You know, again, there's a pretty comprehensive program. We have a new director who's infused some new ideas. We have about 20 to 25 people who finish their high school equivalency and graduate each year. That's a great ceremony to go to. Kids, sometimes they're adults who have come back. Sometimes they're kids who left school and come back because they realize they wish they had never left. And it's just a great program. And then also the enrichment things that I'm sure people have participated in. And then nutrition, school nutrition is the next one, which again, I already really said, it's the cost of food. There's some equipment repairs in there, but it really is just food and then non-food supplies and some of those increased costs that are driving that increase. I'll pause again, and then in a minute, when people don't have questions about that, Dawn can talk about the bonds that we're proposing.
Anybody have any questions so far? No?
And I'll just say, I probably will come back up here again because I can't stop myself. But if people do have questions, they can always reach out to us. We have a folder on our website that we're trying to keep up to date with information as it comes out. We're starting to have FAQs that we add as people ask questions. We'll get them in there so that they're available for everyone to look at. The line item budget is linked in there. If people want to comb through all the hundreds of lines that we have in there. Yeah.
Could you just give us your address of the online, is it MSAD?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny, I just always search Bonnie Eagle, and it's the only thing that comes up.
Okay.
It's sad, I have a
Fair
bookmark, but that's what I do, because you usually get the high school and there's the homepage. Yeah, sorry, I don't have that right at the tip of my tongue, but it is very easy to find. Yeah, and then also we're both available if people ever want to come in and just sit down and talk. We're happy to talk about what's going on. So Dawn is going to come up here and talk about bonds. So there's no mic. You're in the cone of the microphone.
You're in the zone.
Yeah.
So, thanks for having us. So I want to talk a little bit about the bonds. The school board has decided to put forth 2 bonds. One is the SRRF bond, and that's for Georgie Jack School. And what happened is the district applied for 9 or 11 different projects, I'm sorry, I can't remember right now, to the state. And of those 11, we were granted 1. So what happens with SRRF bonds is if you're approved for them, the state will forgive a portion of that bond, depending on what your subsidy is that you receive from the state. So in our case, we would be forgiven 50%. The remainder of that loan is over 10 years and is 0%. So the original Georgie Jack project was over $1 million, but when the state granted us the award, they're only giving us $554,575. So there's still a piece of that project that we couldn't complete. And we included that in the capital project bond. The capital project bond itself is the big ticket here. What happened is we met as a subcommittee of the board and tried to decide on what are the critical things that we need to be able to keep the schools running throughout the winters. And my facilities director is just up, he loses sleep worrying about boilers and HVACs and these things that are just so old and out of date that when they break down, they don't have parts for them anymore. It could take, weeks to get these things fixed, which means if that happened here, we'd have to close the school down and may have to have your kids transported to the middle school in the gym and have school there until we could fix things. So we've pushed it down the road as long as we can and decided that the best way to show our stakeholders what was needed was to show, list the items that we need and ask them if they're willing to fund them. The other projects in this bond are for Buxton. We have the Buxton Center roof. Even though, as Clay said, it's our newest building, the roof has a lake on the top of it, and it's terrible. The water's just already infiltrating, and it's causing issues with the insulation and just water retention, and we're gonna have mold issues, so we need to get it fixed. There's a part of the boiler that's not circulating the heat properly, so we need to have that fixed. And then a big part of this project is updating the controls for these boilers and HVACs in all of the buildings, because right now they're so antiquated that we don't have any of them, and we really need to be able to log onto the computer and see how these systems are working and where the issues are and where we're losing efficiencies. At the Bonnie Eagle Middle School, we need to do the controls there as well. Here in Limington, we need to address the VRF and the boiler.
What is that?
Let me come up to the cone. I believe it's a variable refrigerant flow. It's like a heat pump. If you think of like a heat pump, it will heat and cool. It isn't necessarily meant to be the primary source, but it can take the stress off boilers. That's my best layman's description. Because HB is one of the schools that has the original boiler, or if not close to it. And that's one of the ones that we worry about failing and closing a school down. The benefit of that system is it would provide some cooling, so that when we have these really hot days, we wouldn't have to as readily close school, because it would be more tolerable for the kids and staff in the school. So.
For Hollis Elementary, we need to do the boilers. We need to do the DHW, which is hot water, direct hot water. The air handler units and the HRUs, and again, the controls. And in Standish, we need to do the remainder of that Georgie Jack project that wasn't funded by the SRRF bond. And a big concern there is the HVAC itself, normal CO2 levels that they look for is 1,000 or less. The CO2 levels in Georgia Jack are above 1,600. So the oxygen that you're able to take in affects how you learn and your, how active you can be. So we need to have it fixed. At Steep Falls, it's the VRF. And then at the Bonnie Eagle High School, a big ticket is the track repair and the stadium field turf and controls. The track is literally falling to pieces. Again, we pushed it down the road so long that there are literally chunks coming out of the track. The kids pick up the pieces and throw them like Frisbees. It's a mess. It's not safe. We can't have home contests there anymore because it's not safe. It's, I don't know how long we'll be able to keep our own in-house teams on it because it's a liability at this point. And the turf, it will extend the life of the other fields that we have. We have so much community use on our fields, and we think that's great. We want everybody in our buildings and using the fields as much as possible. But we're having issues because everything right now is grass, and that takes a lot of maintenance. And our grass isn't up to par where it should be. We have irrigation issues, we have all kinds of other issues, and we're hoping, we know that if we can get the turf, it will extend the playing field. We'll be able to put a lot more hours on there, a lot more contests, and it will free up some of our other fields so that we can maintain them easier. The first payment for this, so if this is approved and we are able to go through with the application and we get the funding, we will get the funding in next year, FY27, but we won't have to make the first payment until FY28. So there are no payments built into the budget that we proposed. They won't happen until the following year. The payments on those in FY28 are going to be about $990,000, so almost $1 million. And we're looking at 10 years for over the, we're looking at bonds for 10 years. And the average rate right now, the rate for the capital project bond depends on the market at the time. So right now the bond bank is anticipating between 4 and 5%, but we'll have to wait and see when we actually get the funding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions so far?
I just wanted to say a couple things
Sure.
about related to this. Last year, I think I would have mentioned that we had applied for funding or applied for new schools, right? Put applications on all our buildings. We were successful with finishing number 4 for Georgia Jack, which has been mentioned a couple of times. And I'm sure there are people saying, well, what are we doing, right? If we're going to get a new school, why are we putting money into the school? Well, even the state approved that revolving renovation project for Georgia Jack because they've seen it, they've inspected it, and they know that it won't make it 5 to 7 years. And that's how long it's going to be really before we can expect anything happening with any new construction. And we still need to have kids in that building. Trust me, I looked at it, like how could we figure it out to maybe not use that school if it really came down to it, but I just don't know how we'd pull it off. So a lot of these pieces, like the VRF systems, I believe the companies are telling us that they could be reused, that we could remove them if they still had life, and I would imagine after 5 years they would and could be repurposed. So this would not be funds that, it's not good money after bad, right? It wouldn't be spending it only to like tear a building down or something. So I just wanted to mention that. So that there was a time where we weren't sure if that project had followed the new school concept had fallen apart because of changes at the state level, but I believe that they adjusted the legislation, they changed the language, they dropped some of the language that was going to potentially shut out number 3 and number 4 on the list, which was Old Orchard and us. I think they're grandfathering schools this cycle, so we do anticipate by the fall hearing something about starting to plan for a new project. which I guess I'll just say this to get people's minds thinking about it, like the question will be, is it just something in Standish? Or is it bigger, right? Do we go bigger to get something for all the other schools that aren't Buxton, HB Emory? I was surprised, I guess I hadn't realized that there were 2 wings added onto the central part of that building. And during this process, it came to my attention, and the central part of HB Emory is not sprinkled. It's wooden and not sprinkled, but the wings, I think, are. So those are gonna be conversations the community has to have, and decisions will be made, but that's down the road. But I just wanted to explain that. That's been thought about as we put this plan forward. The other thing I want to say, because I don't think he's here tonight, Don Marian is the board member from Hollis, and he came to the meeting last night in Hollis and spoke at the end, and he had some very insightful thoughts. Don's been in this community for a long time. And the turf field, I know some people might see it as some kind of luxury, right? And I get that. I do get that. But I also will say that we have really successful sports teams, and for some kids, that's the reason they come to school. If you look at the cost of maintaining grass fields, and Don alluded to this, over 10 years, I can't promise you this, but I'm gonna tell you we're gonna come close to breaking even after 10 years to maintain the grass. And we're gonna get so much more playability and equity for kids. Right now, our field hockey team can't play on the stadium field because it's crowned. Has to be crowned to drain. So really only football and soccer play on it. So the girls field hockey team has to play out back when they have their big games. Doing the track and the turf field together is part of what brings us to this point, because if you did the track without doing the field, if you ever did a field, you'd have to, dig up your track again. We've held on for repairing the track for so long, it's over doubled what it would have costed. We could have probably resurfaced it 8 or 7 or 6 years ago, and now it's beyond being able to be resurfaced. It's gonna have to be basically totally rebuilt. So, the decision by the board was to put these things together. I know some people have said, how come you didn't separate them out? It was the board's decision to put them together and have the community decide on all of these together. There's something for every town, and there's something for academics and athletics all in this bond. So just to kind of recap it, there'll be a vote on the budget. And there'll also be a separate vote on the SRF bond, and then there'll be a vote on the capital project bond. So those are the things that people will be deciding on. So thank you for having us, and if there are more questions, but we're also available, reachable anytime. Just reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you.
That website is easy to find, you said?
Look it up right now.
Anybody have any questions? Step on up to the podium. Just state your name, please, for the record.
Go to this one, because I'm sure somebody will come back up to that one. Apologize, I came in late, maybe you guys addressed this already. I was trying to follow along on YouTube, but the carry forward on page 7, when you talk about the carry forward, that's money that you have left over from years past, that's basically your bank account?
Yes.
How much is in that account?
So we haven't been, we can't estimate it precisely because we have to wait till all the books are closed on this year. But we believe it's approaching, it's between 9 and 10 million.
Okay, and
Sorry.
Go good. Sorry.
At the end of 2025, at the end of our fiscal year, there was $9.7 million. And then in the current budget, we have budgeted to use 4 million of that. And I'm estimating we're not going to use all 4 million. Maybe 1 million, I'm hoping less than 1 million, and we're able to keep that fund balance close because next year we're proposing to use 5 million. So if we in fact started with 9.7 and we used 4, we're down to 5.7, and then we use 5 in FY27, our fund balance is down to nothing.
so just trying to understand how money goes, like I know here at the town, at the end of the year, we clear out our books and anything left in any accounts goes into an undesignated fund balance. Does that happen?
That's correct.
Basically the same thing.
So you're thinking you're going to use everything that's in your designated accounts plus 4 millions out of undesignated?
No. What I'm saying is there, at the end of 2025, there was 9.7 in there. And when we built the budget and did all the assessments, we planned on using 4 million of the 9.7 to fund the current year budget FY '26,
Yep.
which ends June 30th. I don't believe we're gonna use all 4 million of that. I'm estimating we're gonna use about 1 million, which would then bring our fund balance from 9.7 to 8.7. And then in FY '27, we budgeted $5 million so that we don't have to collect the money from tax assessments. And again, we're gonna just I keep very close eye on the budgets and try to, if something's not essential, I ask the questions.
Well, and I want to add too, that your question is really the challenging part of all this. It's a moving target. Fund balance is a moving target, right? We know how much we've had from the past. We're trying to estimate how much we might need, how much we might use, and what will be left. And so what Don's saying is theoretically, if we use every bit of it if we spent the entire budget and then use the fund balance, we have to just be ready for that scenario. It hasn't happened, right? It hasn't happened in the last few years. So that's why we're actually taking a little bit of a risk, I guess you could say. There were some people at Budget Advisory who felt like using this much fund balance wasn't a good idea, right? We feel like it's a measured risk because we haven't been using it. So we don't necessarily think that it's going to get spent down, but we just have to be honest with people that there is a scenario where it could happen, right? And so if you keep using $5 million of fund balance every year, there's a point where you could run out of fund balance, right? But we feel like right now it's better to use it than to raise more money from the taxpayers.
So with the town, the money that we pull out of, we call them offsets, we pull out of that fund balance gets spent or gets calculated before we tax the residents. So we plan on spending that rather than if we need it, we'll spend it. It just seems like this is a little bit more of a confusing way because it does make that fund balance more of a, who knows what's in it at the end of the year.
Well, we'll know at some point. It's just right now, we'll know on July 5th, right? We'll know what it is.
Because your books close the end of June?
Yeah, and then we have to let everything catch up and close out. The other thing that the auditors tell us is that, right, we should be keeping a certain amount of fund balance, and we have, as you know, a big budget and a lot of it's payroll, and we have to be able to make payroll, because what we don't want to do is run out of money and have to take a loan. And there are times, it hasn't happened recently, where the revenue doesn't come in. So there is a certain point where it's responsible to have a certain amount of fund balance. And for us, it's a month's worth of payroll. I think it's like $3 million, right? So 3 million would be like a minimum you'd want to have in that fund balance and not have it designated for anything else. But it crept up after COVID. There were delays in reimbursements and just a lot of reasons why. And it just hasn't come back down. And one of the things that Dawn has worked hard to try to do is why are we not expending our budget every year? And I think it comes back to that same thing, that 80% salary and benefits. We have to budget to have the people that we think we need. But like this year, I can think of a couple of positions where we couldn't fill them all year. They went unfilled all year and their salary and benefits added back to that fund balance. So those are just some of the challenges that we have. So we're ideally, you wouldn't have to use it, right? But we're in a position where we are continuing to plan on using it to keep those increases lower on the tax assessment.
And then the other side of that is, do you have a capital fund at all?
Yes.
So I guess what my overall question is how much money do you guys have? Or do we have in Bonny Eagle? Like how much cash do you have basically sitting in accounts?
Finance and Facilities meets once a month, right? And that's where they sign warrants, and there's a discussion every meeting, public meetings. It's the second Thursday, I think, of every month, 4:00 in the central office conference room. And Dawn has these dashboards for every article to show how much we've spent, what we're on track for, and all updates on all of these capital accounts. And all of those meeting packets are online. Anybody can go look at them and look at these dashboards and see those capital reserve accounts. I don't remember off the top of my head, like what the.
I can tell you roundabout, in a capital reserve account, we have approximately $2 million. And in a technology reserve account, we have about $1 million.
And those are designated for
for those,
projects.
yes, for those types of projects. And the funds can only be used with the vote of, has to be approved by 2/3 of the school board.
So for example, we did security upgrades this school year out of that capital, the facilities capital reserve account. We replaced the front door in HBMRE school. It was in poor condition, it wasn't secure, so they put a new door on that school, improved the cameras, rekeyed buildings, that all came out of there. That was a big, keying is a very expensive, industrial keying is a very expensive proposition. So that was all done out of the capital reserve account. The technology capital reserve is often the money that the technology department gets from reselling the old devices when they get new ones. Like that's one of the ways the money goes back into that account, and it's often used, again, for other technology related items.
So, I guess a little point of clarification, the 2 million that's in a capital account is designated for a project or could be designated for a project?
I would say it's undesignated, but it gets designated for projects that come up for the area of
Right,
facilities.
so right now, there's an item on the agenda for the May 4th meeting. It's a second read of using some of those capital funds for some irrigation issues that we're having. I can't remember the dollar amount.
I think it's like 330,000 or something.
Yes. And then the technology just got approved. They've had their first and second read, so the technology director is going ahead. They're buying touch panels for every elementary classroom. So HBMRE, all of the elementary schools, Buxton Center already has them, but all the other elementary classrooms are going to be getting these touch panels that the teachers
And
will
I
have.
think they replace projectors, basically, as the technology advances there.
And so the capital funds that we're talking about, the buildings and the technology, these are funds that at the end of your fiscal year, they stay funded. They don't go back to an unreserved account.
That is
right?
correct.
These are capital funds that stay there. So is any of that factored into your capital project?
No, it is not.
These are things that we're trying to do outside of that money, because it wouldn't be obviously enough, right, to do all of them. We burned through it pretty quick with a couple of those, so this felt more equitable to try to do something for every school rather than just pick one and have the other ones just go on.
So your capital funds that you have now, that gets spent by 2/3 of a vote of the school board?
Yeah.
That doesn't come back to the towns or anything like that?
Not those areas.
And do you have any like percentages or anything like that that you have on any of those?
The amounts and things?
on the capital?
Yeah. That's all broken down in an FAQ on that. It's bonnieagle.org. I mean, it's very easy, actually. I don't know why I didn't just say that. But on our website, bonnieagle.org, there's a budget information button, and then there's a folder for 26, 27, and it has a breakdown of all the details of all of that, how much each of the parts of that project cost and everything.
Okay. Thank you.
And I actually got a question through my email, someone watching at home.
Sure.
And they want to know, I think, more about the controls. And I'll just say, like, a great example of this is Georgie Jag almost froze solid about 3 years ago. And if it wasn't for a teacher going in on a Saturday afternoon to pick something up, the school would have flooded because of a broken pipe. And we would have closed the school down for probably a month or longer to fix it. Because no one knew there was a problem. The heat goes off in the school, and they only find out on Monday morning when the custodian comes in to open the school up. These controls allow these to be monitored, so during a cold stretch, the facilities director could bring all the schools up and see what's going on and head off a problem before we get there and find out that a school's frozen and major damage has been done. So that's my, again, layman's explanation of what those controls will allow us to do, bring us into the 21st century.
So it's alarmed. It basically sets an alarm off for you to catch it before.
And then he can go in and adjust things if it's gonna be colder tonight or whatever, right? Like he can go in and make adjustments from a distance and not have to be on site to do it.
Save money in the long run.
It's just heating controls, like he won't be notified if a water line breaks through those controls?
Probably not water, but
Probably not water.
So you still have to close even
heating,
though,
HVAC, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, if
if it's over the weekend, you'll still have to close.
If it
It'll be
was-
heated water.
Yeah, I suppose that maybe wasn't the best example. But if the building was freezing, right, I suppose you might still get an alarm if that eventually is gonna affect the heating system.
Be
right?
wearing
But I
ice skates and still be
understand your
wearing
point.
boots.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else?
Bonnie,
I just,
Yeah, step right up.
step into the square, Bonnie.
I'm in the zone, right?
You're in the zone.
Is it the Twilight Zone?
Yes.
Bonnie Laughlin, Cape Road, Limington. When Jake was asking us questions about the capital improvement, I remembered that I came in a little late, so I was standing at the door and I read those articles for the meeting that will be on May 6th that you referred to a moment ago. And I remembered reading one of those articles to do with the capital improvement fund, so that's what got me there. And then it led me to what you've walked us through tonight, no criticism, I'm just trying to learn, is through Article 11. But indeed, there are more articles that will be voted on May 6th that have to do with different categories.
So article.
And then there are indeed 2 articles that have to do with the authorization of the vote to allow the transfer of money into the capital improvement and also into that technology, the capital improvement. And we just went through town meeting here where we have to do certain things like this by vote too, but perhaps you could clarify that all the articles weren't indeed presented tonight, but there'll be a bunch more on May 6th.
So the articles that were presented tonight had to do with the expense side of the budget.
Yeah.
Once you get past Article 11, it has to do with raising the funds from the town, so it's more on the revenue side. How are you gonna fund these 11 articles?
I say raising the funds. One is authorizing the funds, but the other has to do with the mechanics of getting the funds from one place to another. Is that what you meant? You said raising the funds, I think.
So we have to have authorization to spend the money. We also have to have authorization to bill the towns for whatever we don't. So if it's not state subsidy, those are our sources of income, right? Our very minimal miscellaneous revenues like interest income, our state subsidy, our balance forward, and whatever we can't raise with those 3 items comes from the taxpayers. And in order to bill the towns for that, we need approval to do that.
The authorization.
Correct.
Nevertheless, that'll all be part of what's voted on May
Correct.
6th, right? And what's voted on May 6th is voted on by whomever turns out for that vote.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just housekeeping.
One other question I had, if I may, is you referred earlier, Mr. Gleason, to how the state decides what percentage to charge each of the towns. Is that right?
Yes.
And it's a little mysterious to me what part of the state does that. Can you clarify as much as possible?
I'm not really sure that I can adequately tonight.
Department of Education.
Is it the
Department of Education is who creates the ED 279 report, which is what we get, where we get those percentages from. Where the Department of Ed pulls their valuations, I could not tell you.
Right.
I can get the answer for you.
That's nice of you. So it's the Department of Education, and is this delivered to you all in some, a letter, email, something at some?
Usually in January of
Okay,
every year, late January, we get the initial, this is what you're gonna get from the state. But it is public, it's on the State of Maine Department of Education website, and it's called the ED 279.
You can look at the 279 for any school department in the state, is there in past years or they're one year to the next.
when that's there, and when I go look at it, is that like in January, is that when we can see something that's telling us that Limington will have, Limington will have a tax impact per 100,000 of 3.51?
Doesn't break that.
It won't break, what it will do is it will tell you of what they consider essential programs and services. It will break down the percent that you have to pay,
You, who's the you?
the town, each town.
Okay,
I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it won't get as granular as Dawn has put that on there. That's something that she's broken out further. It's more of a bigger picture of what each town's responsibility is.
What the state says is, based on what we say, you need to run a school, which is, floor level basics. They'll say, okay, you need this amount of money, and each town should be able to contribute this amount based on the valuation of your towns. Now, what we consider debt service and anything above that essential level is also broken down by that same percentage.
Okay, I appreciate that you're really trying to help me here. So in all that, is that a place where we can see the percentage for Limington being in the ballpark of, are they giving us the percentage here that we see here? In numbers, I'm not just talking about a vague something.
You should be able to see the percentage.
And so it's been set in January?
It was sent in January, it was updated just recently.
Because they do change it sometimes. It's like one of the things that's affecting us is that I mentioned pre-K. We had to give them initial guess at how many pre-K students we thought we were gonna have. Then they asked us to make sure it was our best guess, and so then we altered that, and I had put in a high number, and then we saw the enrollments weren't coming in. So bottom line is that our revenue, our subsidy ended up being reduced in the second version because we had less pre-K kids that we were estimating. Now, if we have a bunch of kids show up, they'll change it again. But it gets to the point where we have to just move forward with a number, because we can't keep moving the number.
When is the most recent time that you, which means we, if I looked at your website, I'm not trying to say you.
Yeah.
But what's the most recent time that you saw that Limington would have a difference of an increase of 5.12% from last year? When did we see that? When could we have seen it? When?
You could have seen it on the January report.
Oh, really?
Because I don't believe that the EPS, I don't believe those rates change. They say that you need this amount of money. Your valuations don't change in that period of time. They take the valuations and that's what they are for that fiscal year. They're not gonna change the valuations.
It just ended.
I believe they take an average of the past 3 years.
Oh, yeah, the 3-year.
Yes.
Okay, but nevertheless, it would live in writing somewhere.
What the percentage would be of is what could change a little, but the percent shouldn't, to Don's point, shouldn't change.
5.12, the one that is ours. Thank you, thanks for helping me.
Anybody else? No? Okay,
Thank you for coming tonight.
yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, if anybody ever wants to reach out.
I'm gonna leave some packets on your table and I'll leave my card if anyone wants to email
Thank you
me or
very
come and
much.
see me.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, given the,
Notifications and-
yeah, given the time, let's move right into the notifications. Is that you?
That's me.
That's you.
All right, the town needs someone to serve on the Saco River Joint Cable Committee. This position is appointed by the Select Board. This committee, made up of representatives from the surrounding towns, is responsible for negotiating a new cable franchise contract that will begin in January 2029. The last contract was negotiated in 2013. Select Board office hours are Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and the on-air meeting time is Thursdays at 7. Transfer station hours are Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Wednesday 12 to 4. Transfer station sticker must be attached to your vehicle windshield for the disposal of all items. Transfer station stickers are available at the town office for $20. No sticker is required for the use of the swap shop. The transfer station does not accept brush, yard clippings, or hazardous waste. Riverside Recycling in Portland takes hazardous waste. Just a friendly reminder to all residents that building waste, furniture, and mattresses should not be left at the curbside. We have a transfer station for those items. General assistance applications are available at the town office during normal business hours. Applications must be filled out and accompanied with supporting documentation. and must be signed and returned to the GA administrator or town clerk. The planning board meets at the municipal complex the first and third Monday evenings of the month at 7 PM. Their next one will be on Tuesday, the 21st, because the 20th is a holiday. And that's all I have.
Excellent. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, folks, before we adjourn, can I speak?
We weren't opening up to public tonight just because of the longevity of the meeting.
Of course.
All right, when would the public speaking portion be then? Not for nothing, I've been hanging out for an hour and a half on a very uncomfortable metal.
Next Thursday, it'll be back to, no, actually,
The special meeting?
next meeting's, yeah, special meeting.
Well, that shouldn't take.
That shouldn't take too long, because it's usually
There's
not many
public
people
comment
that
in
show up.
every meeting,
so,
we're just not doing it
yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, so it'd be back to next Thursday.
All right,
Now, I apologize, it's just this usually runs longer, so
I understand.
we assumed everybody was here for the MSAD budget.
Understood. No, something a little different. I wanted to pick your folks' brains about.
Well, yep, what's that? Yeah, no, we will, yeah, if you would gladly come back next week, we will make sure of it, so.
Look
And
forward
you
to
can
it.
certainly come in during office hours too, in the afternoon, if you wanted to meet one-on-one with the board.
I'm sorry, I work. So that,
Well, they meet from 2 until 7, till they go online, so you can certainly come in before then too.
all right, fair enough, thank you.
I'll make a motion, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Well, we are adjourned at 8:22 PM.